Ask the Podcast Coach for October 7th, 2023.
Let's get ready to podcast.
And then we dance. Just a little. It is Saturday. That music means it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there, he jumped through many a hoop to be here, and we appreciate it. From redhatmedia.io, he is I call him the king. Well, he's one of the kings of ChatGPT. Every time I'm around this guy, I'm like, I didn't know ChatGPT. Yeah, that thing would do my laundry. So Larry Roberts, thanks for making it on the show, buddy.
What's happening, Dave? Sorry I'm late, man. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, sometimes technology is not your friend. And the other thing we do, Larry, is do you like coffee by any chance?
It depends. I mean, I used to be a big coffee drinker. Now I'm more of a, if you've seen me around, you typically see me with a white Monster can in hand. So.
And what is so special about the white Monster?
Well, it's got a textured can, which feels nice in my hand. But it's also 0 calories, 0 sugar. It's referred to as Zero Ultra.
Well, that's fun. Well,
yeah.
We're going to pretend you're pouring coffee because we have two little sponsor bits we're going to go through here. So we'll just kind of do one of these, and there we go. Oh, that's the wrong sound effect. There we go. And that coffee pour, of course, is brought to you by, there we go. Let's do it again. Let's get it right. There we go. And that is brought to you by, again, our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. If you remember, of course, obviously, they see you before they hear you. And Mark is not only an award-winning graphic artist, he's a podcaster. I mean, look at all these awesome pieces of artwork. Amazing stuff. And he will sit down with you, and he will figure out what your show's about. He will look at your website, because if you need a whole website, if you need artwork, if you need a PDF for a lead magnet, if you need anything to look good, well, doggone it, Mark is the place. He is the guy. He is the man that understands podcasting and graphic arts, and so he wants to help you out. Again, his website is podcastbranding.co. Tell him that Dave, Jim, and even Larry sent you, because he's a good guy for sponsoring the show. He helps keeps it going, and we appreciate it. And I just realized as I look at the screen, Larry, you're not on the screen, and that's not Larry's fault. Here, let's get him over here. Can I do this live? Oh, there he is. Look, it's Larry. You'll see in a second. And one more. Isn't that fun? It's like jazz. It's like excellent. And last but not least, Larry, if you've never heard of this show, you want to check it out. Larry, have you ever watched a show that started off and it said based on a true story?
Yeah, of course.
Well, there you go. What Dan does is he goes over and says, okay, how much of that, it's based on a true story, but is it really? Like, how much, the characters' names, and from there they just went crazy. Well, he picks it apart and says, here's what was true, here's what really happened, in the end, maybe, I'm totally drawing a blank. What was the woman in Titanic?
Rose.
Rose. Maybe Rose should have made some room on that door. Maybe a door would have supported, Jack, poor Jack. But check him out. It's a great podcast. He's been a fill-in co-host as well. Dan, thank you much for sponsoring Jim's mug. So with that, Larry Roberts, I'm so glad you are here. I'm hoping, I have a member of the School of Podcasting, Craig from Live Well and Flourish, and he is also, because your background's in IT. I didn't realize.
Yeah. My corporate background was IT. When I left my corporate gig back in January of 21, I was a business intelligence analyst. So data and all things related to data was my daily jam.
Nice. And because Craig teaches like computer stuff, like IT stuff he's a professor at, Dr. Craig teaches down in Louisiana. He's really into ChatGPT. And I was like, ooh, we get you two in the same room. It'd be crazy. But because I've seen you do 2 presentations now on ChatGPT, and the latest one was at Spark Media. And so I always thought, as I've been sniffing ChatGPT for a while, that, man, I just really need to learn how to prompt. And I understand that's kind of like one of your titles now. You're like a prompter or I forget. I saw it on
Prompt
your.
engineer, I think, is the technical term, but I just saw Daniel J. Lewis's comment. I worked for the BIA. That's pretty funny for a little nerd business intelligence joke there. But prompt engineering is the term that we've been using as of late for people that are trying to develop prompts to help people create their content.
Yeah, and so I thought I just needed to learn how to prompt, and I found out from your thing at Spark, there's really a step we need to do beforehand where you can kind of go in and kind of tell it who you are ish. So can you kind of expand on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. And this is, we'll say, it's relatively new. This wasn't when ChatGPT first came out. This wasn't a feature that they offered, but now they have custom instructions. And within the custom instructions, it gives you two different text boxes or two different areas where you can populate ChatGPT with information about yourself, your goals, your business, what you do, who you are, what you like, what your personality style is. And then there's also a text box below that has another set of variables that you can input that tell ChatGPT how to respond. So that helps out tremendously because typically when we were first using ChatGPT, I'm sure we've all heard that if you want to get good results, you go into ChatGPT and you say, I want you to act as a copywriter, or I want you to act as a novelist, or I want you to act as a marketing expert. Well, with these custom instructions, you can establish that personality or that persona at the account level. So no longer do you need to do it every time you start a new chat. When you input your custom instructions, ChatGPT references those before it actually responds to any of your queries.
Very nice. Now, what, like when you tell it about yourself, can you say I'm a, like does ChatGPT understand sarcasm, for example? Like, or can I say be funny or be light?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. You can tell it exactly how to respond, what your personality traits are, and it will take all of that into consideration also when it's evaluating your questions or your commands, and then also as it's responding to those questions or commands.
Nice. The other thing I thought was really interesting, and this is where I love people that, and that sounds like a really stupid statement. I love people that tell the truth. But you showed how you can go in because everybody's like, wait a minute, everything I put into why can I okay, Chat GPT.
You need more of that coffee, Dave.
That's it.
You need some more of that coffee.
It's like everybody's worried that if I put in too much information into Chat GPT, that they can use it, and I'm giving away trade secrets and all this other stuff. And you kind of showed at the conference where you can go in and opt out of that. And then you had another point about the terms of service.
Yeah, it's interesting because they did, privacy is always one of the biggest concerns. I was just doing a ABC here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex 2 days ago, and privacy was one of the biggest concerns that people have. So ChatGPT came and they gave us the opportunity to opt out of them leveraging our data to train their models. Now, the only problem with that is that you're still operating under the original user agreement that you agreed to when you signed up for ChatGPT. So while I haven't actually talked to any legal experts regarding whether or not that's still a loophole, it's just definitely something you want to keep in mind.
Yeah, I always assume they're snooping and using everything I put in, even because, not that they're evil, but they, most big companies didn't get there being completely white hat all the way. So you never know.
Well, it's scary too because all this is so new to us. This is just the words AI or even AGI. That's even scarier. Artificial general intelligence. It just freaks people out. And I think a lot of it goes back to all the movies that we've seen over the last decades, 2 or 3 decades. Every time you see AI, it's obviously taking over and then it's wiping out the human race, whether it was HAL and A Space Odyssey or whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. AI has always been the bad guy.
Yeah. And so are they going to take over and kill the world? And, do we have something to be worried about?
Well, my crystal ball doesn't tell me for sure, but at this stage of the game, I don't think we have too much to be concerned about at this point. There's debate as to whether or not AGI or artificial general intelligence, where the AI itself becomes self-aware. The AI itself continues to evolve without human interaction. That's the difference between the AI that we're using now, where it takes us as humans to give it a prompt or a command. AGI tends to evolve and learn on its own with little to no human interaction. So that's kind of the scary aspect, because once they get that nailed down, I mean, inevitably, the AI is going to become smarter than we are. And if the machines are smarter than we are, the big question is, how do we stay in control? But some scientists are saying that AGI just is out of reach. So it's not something to be really, really concerned about right now.
Nice. DR says that you can put it into like be 30% witty and 70% professional. So that's an interesting slant. The one thing I thought I would ask before we get into how podcasters can use it, what can you not use ChatGPT for? Like, what should you go? Yeah, that's not the right tool for this.
Well, at this stage of the game, it can do just about everything other than video at this point, because they're releasing the latest release that's coming out, and it's being rolled out literally as we speak right now. It should be out over the next 2 weeks. Everybody should have access to it. But ChatGPT has now evolved to the point where it can see, hear, and speak. So you can show it images now, and it can analyze the images, and you can have a conversation if you're using ChatGPT on your mobile device, whether it's iOS or Android. It's available on both. You can literally have a conversation back and forth with ChatGPT. So they are starting to roll out the new version of DALL-E as well. And DALL-E is the image creation platform that was created by OpenAI, the same developers of ChatGPT. And before too long, we're going to see DALL-E integrated into ChatGPT as well. So you'll even be able to do image generation right there within the same platform.
Very interesting. It's kind of, Dave's not here now, that whole 9 yards. Ross Brand wants
What's up, Ross Brand?
Yeah, wants to know, do you use the templates in ChatGPT? I'm just never going to get that right. Not sure if they're native in ChatGPT or if it's some sort of plugin.
There's some recommendations when you first log on to ChatGPT. There's like 4 different suggested prompts to get you started. But some of the other templates that are out there, and what I see a lot of folks using is a plugin called AIPRM. And what that does, it helps you become a prompt master. And it's preloaded literally with thousands of different prompts for just about every content creation scenario you can imagine. But that's a very, very popular plugin now. I personally don't use any of the plugins. I like to prompt it myself, especially now that we have the custom instructions. But I definitely recommend, if you're new to ChatGPT, use something like AIPRM in order to get you started.
Yeah, the one thing that has come, the more I watch you do stuff, I'm kind of seeing what the Cast Magics and the Swells and the Cap shows, it seems like they're just using ChatGPT with a bunch of plugins that you do have to pay for, and then they basically charge a little more money on top of it and make maybe a little prettier interface. So does it, how do we know which road to go down? Do I just spend the $20 and use ChatGPT and use their plugins, or do I just use a, Cast Magic, Cap Show, Swell? There's actually, I think, in about 2 more minutes, somebody else is going to put a new one of those on the market. How
they're wrapping it up right now?
Yeah, for the general person, because again, you're kind of a nerd, right? You've got this background in tech, but for the person, but for the person that's new to tech, maybe, or is not super, they know Word and email and things like that. Does it make sense to no, just jump into ChatGPT and go to YouTube and hire Larry to train you on ChatGPT? How hard a road is that compared to using something like CapShow or Cast Magic or all those fun toys?
I mean, I'm definitely biased when it comes to hiring Larry to help you with ChatGPT. Yes. I love that recommendation. But as far as the other tools go, I think it really depends on how much of a control freak you are. Me personally, I like to be able to be in total control of the content that I'm creating, whether it's the titles, whether it's the show notes, whether it's a blog post or even a book. But if I am really being honest, we definitely use some of those tools in-house here as well. I'd rather not say which I use because I'm friends with the developers on both platforms and I don't want to lose any friends this morning. But but I think those tools are very, very useful, and they're very time saving as well. So it's a much more efficient way to address it. But me personally, when I'm doing Larry stuff, I like to have total control. So I typically go with the Chat GPT and some of the other tools directly.
Well, Larry, you ready to do something I've never done on this show before?
Uh-oh,
It's
what?
going to be fun. We're going to go to a 3-person panel. And
Oh, snap.
so I got to drag you over here as guest one. Notice the branding. I have the red outline around you, and I said, man,
Oh, look.
I sure hope we can get Craig Van Slyke on here, Dr. Craig, I should say, and he's another ChatGPT guru. And
I'm just glad my studio's in good shape here because we're seeing angles that we typically don't see on when I'm online here.
it's looking good, my friend. Craig, how are you?
Good, good. How are y'all?
Oh,
Good
great
morning,
fun.
Craig.
So I know you've been playing. How long have you been playing with ChatGPT? Or were you like an early adopter, or?
Yeah, when you couldn't really get in, I was able to get in. So
Nice. What are you using ChatGPT for, Craig, at this point?
I use it for all kinds of stuff. So I use it to help me develop every episode. I use it for therapy from time to time. Um, as Dave said earlier, I teach college classes. I use it to help me refine how I'm going to explain things. And I'm getting ready to launch a newsletter and podcast called AI Goes to College.
Nice.
And it's helping me
Cool.
think through that launch and kind of how I might want to structure the newsletter and that sort of thing. So really, it's my trusted advisor. So
Ah.
ChatGTP and Dave, those are my trusted advisors.
Well, and Larry, when you're making a pie, because you have is it just called Branded?
Yeah, the show that I have these days is called Branded.
Yes, and that is found at.
On all your favorite podcast platforms or here on YouTube.
Yeah, but
Subscribe on your favorite
is there
platform today.
is there like a website that I could put in the show notes?
Listen to branded.com.
There we go. I know. Awesome show prep, Dave. Thanks, Dave, for not doing the two. So the Z-Man wants to know, hey, I've been mulling over the name of my podcast. I have 28 topics in hand. Can I put those topics into basically ChatGPT and have it give me suggestions? So, what would that look like if you guys wanted to play with that?
I think you go ahead, Craig.
No, you can absolutely do that. One of my favorite prompts is asking it to please critique, and then whatever I want it to critique. And so you can ask it to evaluate those names, to rank them, to come up with variations on those names, anything like that. It's pretty good at all of those things.
Larry, you got another another door into the same room?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can use all 28 of them. You can load them up into ChatGPT as long as it's within the token allowance that they currently have on ChatGPT. So if you're using a lot of data that you're asking ChatGPT to evaluate, you may run into from time to time that it exceeds the token limits or there's too much data there and it asks you to reduce the size of it. And if that's the case, then you could take those 28 titles or 28 summaries or whatever it may be, put them into a PDF, and then use one of the PDF reader plugins to overcome that. Now, here's another way around that little limitation as well. I saw somebody mention Claude in the comments, and Claude is amazing, and it doesn't have those limitations. So if you're evaluating large amounts of data, there's times that I'll go over and use Claude as well to overcome that. So there's a couple of different ways that we could. I was going to say skin a cat, but I'm not going to say that because that's kind of painful. But anyway.
That is a weird saying. And
yeah, right.
Craig, this week, what did you do with Claude that somehow it rated your show or something?
Yeah. I this was with Bard, Google's AI, which, by the way, got much, much, much better about 2 weeks ago. It used to be garbage, but it got a lot better. So I just asked it, what do you think of the podcast Live Well and Flourish?
And it gave it
I tell you,
thumbs
it
up.
was, I mean, I would have been really bad if
did
it
not.
said it completely stinks, but it didn't, fortunately.
So, which brings it. So we've put in our information that, hey, I want you to be 30% witty, 70% professional. Like, where do you start? And Larry, for the record, you're locked up. It's just not, sometimes technology is not your friend. and this is going to be one of those days. Is there a double click to for the? Okay, so Larry's now gone. So I'm really glad you're here, Craig. Well, let's see if I can do. Can I drag you over here? Okay, hold on. I can do this. We'll do this. This is Dave learning Ecamm Live on the fly. Now you're not Larry Roberts,
I'm
and
not Larry. No.
you're no. So you but if I wanted to learn to prompt, like, can I ask ChatGPT what are the? I mean, obviously, I should quit saying that. Can I ask ChatGPT? Yes, you can ask ChatGPT anything you want, but like, can ChatGPT teach me how to learn ChatGPT?
Yeah, absolutely. You can. In fact, that's how I learned. As I said, what can I do to help you give me better answers? And it'll tell you things like, give me a role, give me context, tell me what you want for your output. If you have a particular purpose in mind, you can tell it, I'm trying to develop a script for an episode, or I'm trying to write my show notes, or whatever it might be. You can tell it your audience. I'm
Hmm.
trying to reach an audience of podcasters. Really, if you almost think of it as being like a consultant,
Hmm.
what would you tell a consultant to help the consultant give you better answers?
Answers. Interesting. Well, he's back, so I'm going to drag. Let's see if I can drag. Nope, I can't. I can do here. We'll drag Larry into the Larry box. There we go.
There's
Excellent.
Larry back
Nice
in
to
the
have
Larry
you
box.
back, my friend.
Hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. I love all these
And-
technical issues that I'm having this morning. This
And
is
now you have a real
super
microphone.
professional.
So, are you on your phone anymore?
Oh yeah, still on my phone.
Oh, okay, excellent.
I don't know why it just froze up and dumped me out. I was like, oh, okay, I guess
That's what-
Dave didn't like that answer.
And Larry's gone. See ya. No. So
See, AI overlords getting us.
Yeah, I was asking, like, how do you learn prompts? Do you have any? Is there like a go-to resource, Larry, that you use to kind of get your feet in, or where did you learn ChatGPT?
Man, a lot of it is just really hands-on and understanding how to have the level of conversation that you want to have with ChatGPT. So many times we try to overcomplicate it. And it literally is, it's taught using natural language. So if we use our natural language, it's going to better understand us than if we try to put something together that sounds very technical and very precise. Just ask ChatGPT for what you're looking for. It'll give it to you. Now, granted, I have a couple of prompts that I can share, and Dave, if I can put them in chat or something along those lines, that have some variables. And this one particular prompt that I use, you can use it for a variety of different things if you just plug in the different variables. I'll actually copy that off and throw it in the chat there, which it's been very, very helpful, and it's a great starter prompt. So if you think that'd be valuable, I'm happy to share.
Yeah, the fun thing is, because the chat you see is maybe not the one on YouTube is the actual chat. But if you put it in interview chat, this is always fun for the people watching. If you put that in there, I can then copy and paste it into the real chat. So that's always fun. But I should also mention, we talked about Larry. I mentioned his website. This is Larry's website, The Man with the Red Hat. So
It is.
And so again, you can find him over at redhatmedia.io. So if you're like, I don't understand any of this stuff, Larry can help you out. And of course, Craig's over at livewellandflourish.com. But so let's say I'm like, okay, natural language. If I throw in something to ChatGPT and it doesn't understand what I just asked it to do, like I just told it to, moo moo dog face with a banana patch. And it's like, I don't know what that is. For those of you, that's an old Steve Martin joke. What does it do when it's confused? Because I've heard about it hallucinating, which is it doesn't know the answer, so it makes one up. So if you just really hork a really bad prompt, what happened?
You'll get a really bad response if you get a response at all, because there are definitely times where it'll just say, I don't understand, or I can't answer that question. It's interesting when we ask it and I don't want to go down into a rabbit hole here, but if we ask it certain questions that may not reflect some of the data that it's been trained on, the response there, it will just come back and tell you, I can't answer that one.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's good.
And it's important to understand that it has no notion of something being true.
Right.
I mean, it's all probabilities to it. So it'll tell you things, but it has no idea whether or not they're really true. So that's on you.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've always, I always cite the one. There's an article on Castos's website that says how hard there was a discoverability problem with podcasting back in like 1990, and I go, yeah, there was a real discoverability problem because it didn't exist yet. So yeah, that's always fact check. That's why I try not to use it as a search engine. I try to use it as a writing tool, or like Craig said, maybe like your own little consultant. I know when I did a sales video, and I know what a sales video is, and you do this and do that, and you exaggerate and blah blah blah. And I said, I just went to Chat GPT. I go, what are the proper steps of a good sales video? And I skipped one. I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that one. So I like to brainstorm with it at times. When it comes to podcasting, like if somebody says, well, how would this write my show notes? How do you do that, Larry?
Yeah, a lot of the ways that we do that is we'll export the MP3 using Otter or another transcription service, and then use that transcription to have ChatGPT summarize it into your show notes. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about before I got booted. There was either using Claude to review and summarize that large amount of data, or putting those show notes into a PDF so that ChatGPT can read it all. Interesting when it comes to using a lot of data. I recently wrote a book for someone that is the president of a fairly large entrepreneurs network. And what we did was we took 200 of his blog posts and we imported them into ChatGPT, filled out his custom instructions so that ChatGPT understood his persona and his writing style and what he's looking for. And we literally wrote his book in 4 hours. It's a 12 chapter, 130 some odd page book. Now he needs to go back through and read each chapter and add a little bit here, or maybe change a little bit there. But overall, it did an amazing job of summarizing those 200 blog posts and making it an actual book.
Yeah, because now if you go in and add a personal story here and a personal story there, little fact checking here and there, that's pretty interesting. I know, I think it was Podfest where you did the one with the squirrels. You
Yeah.
you had ChatGPT write a children's book, and just about the time the whole audience was like, "Whoa!" Larry showed the whatever tool you used to make the artwork, and that was insane. And it was just like, yeah. So,
And this was in January. So, I mean, ChatGPT had only been out for 2 months when I did that talk. And the book that it wrote was called Squirrely Love. So what I had done was my wife, we have some trees in the backyard, and the wife, she loves going out there and hanging out with the squirrels. And she came in one day, she goes, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this, but the little squirrels, they grew up and now one moved to a different tree, but he's still in the backyard, but in a different tree." And I told her, I said, "Honey, that's cute and all, but I think it was a husband and wife squirrel that got a divorce, and he packed up his nuts and he moved to the tree across the yard, but he didn't want to leave the neighborhood because they got kids, right? So they want to co-parent." And so when I told her that, I was like, man, I wonder if I can write that into a book. So I literally took essentially that exact prompt that I just said, put it into ChatGPT, and it wrote the entire children's book. It was called Squirrely Love. It gave it a title, and it was all about the two squirrels that got a divorce but wanted to stay in the same neighborhood because they were co-parenting 3 little squirrels. And it was the cutest tale, and it was really, really an effective little book. So then using DALL-E, which I mentioned, DALL-E 3 is on its way out here in the next couple of weeks. If it's not out officially now, actually, I think it is already out. But I used DALL-E to come up with images of baby squirrels, and then I illustrated the book. So I did the whole thing in just a couple of hours. It went from a silly story about the squirrels in the backyard to an entire children's book. And that's really just the power of the tools.
Yeah, it's crazy. DR had a quick question here. She said, is ChatGPT, because I know there's the free version and then there's a paid version, which if I understand this right, is $20 a month. Does ChatGPT, is it limited to a hard stop at 2021, or has that been updated? So, Craig, you want to?
The model that it's using is still 2021. However, Bing is also back. So it has direct access to the internet now. So you can get information, up-to-date, current information on any topic that you're interested in.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
That's another place where Bard, which is Google's
Yeah.
version of ChatGPT, Bard has full access to the internet, as I understand it, it can actually access your Google Docs and your Gmail and that kind of thing if you ask it to.
It's so scary.
Which is
Well, they've actually got it incorporated now. If you go to Google Docs
right.
or Sheets, you've got an AI companion that's right there that's embedded in their
Oh,
entire suite.
well, that speaking of Google, Hillary has a question. She says, what if we want our own info to be discovered, as in our podcast on our own background or others to discover? I don't know that it's not a search engine. It's, you might be able to use it. Like, does it understand? Again, I guess the answer is always going to be yes. But like, if I say, write a summary of this transcription using the top keywords, does it know that, or how does it work for SEO purposes?
Does it know? Opinions vary.
Yeah.
But can it evaluate and determine? Sure, it can. So that's really the way that we want to look at it, is not that it knows what the best SEO words are, but the opportunity for it to discover those words is definitely there. And in reading that question, it sounded like maybe they were asking if we could somehow make sure that it remembers our information and we can embed our information in the training models. And at least I'm not aware of any way to make sure that they're using our data for training purposes and creating an environment where it's discoverable for other users. I haven't heard of that to date, at least. Maybe
Ye-
Craig has, but I'm not familiar
Now,
with that.
Yeah, basically she says, can we add ourselves so that when others search for us, we show up? I think it's more of that's just a good old fashioned SEO question, and there are tons of tools. Like, I know CoSchedule is a kind of a tool you use to plan your content, but they have a headline
Hmm.
tool that now has AI built into it. And it's kind of interesting because it really gets you into fairly clickbaity kind of titles that I'm like, that's where I try to write for people. And when it just has me using words that I would never use, I'm just like, yeah, Dave would never say that. I appreciate that I'm going to get, I got a score of 72 where before it was 68, but I'm like, yeah, I just would never say that though. That's the tricky part.
Dave, do you mind if I bring up thought space as I
Oh
bring up
yeah.
thought space?
Oh yeah.
So I did a little bit of work for a company that released a tool called ThoughtSpace.ai, and it actually trains on your content. So you can give them your RSS feed, and it will pull in all of your episodes, and it can do this with PDFs or videos, whatever. And then it will answer questions based on the content that you provide.
Yeah, it's spooky. So like here's my thought space. And so I can go here and say, what is the best microphone under $100? And it thinks about it, and it's going through all my transcripts based on the content in this thought space. The best microphone under $100 is the Audio Technica ATR 2100. Thought Space discusses various microphones, including the Shure MV7, Blue Yeti, and Rode Podcaster, but the Audio Technica ATR 2100 is recommended. And then what's interesting, it has a whole bunch of other things here, but if I go to watch, it brings up it brings a really old video of me. It's in the winter. My hair is, if I want to blow that up, so that it's, so I'm talking, even though I'm talking about a Zoom, I must have mentioned that microphone in that video. So thought space is really interesting because it can kind of, in a way, if you're a consultant, be careful because it might, take you. Oops, wrong one. We're on this one. There we go. I was like, well, that's kind of cool, except if it answers everybody's questions for them, they're not going to hire me. I was like, that's kind of an interesting thing, but it is a really cool program. I've had a couple times where somebody be like, it's somewhere in the school of podcasting. It's like Ask Robo Dave, and you can go over there and I've asked it, the typical question: how do I grow my audience? What's the best microphone? Should I use this? And I'm like, well, that's actually what I would say. And it's like, oh, because that's what I said. So it's kind of spooky in that aspect. So.
What they're working towards is to try to help creators better engage with their audience. So that's their end goal, and it's still in beta. So if anybody's interested, I just put my email address in chat,
Nice.
I'm happy to connect people.
Yeah, it's a fun toy when it came along. You know, and then have you played much with Midjourney? Either of you guys? Dr wants to know. How, Dolly, I guess is how we're saying that versus Midjourney. I know Todd Cochran is all over Midjourney, and what's interesting about that is the first couple of times Todd was using Midjourney, it looked like it was the first time he used Midjourney. Now when I see this stuff, I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. So I've seen a lot of people in the chat room are like, you kind of just got to play with it. But have you played with either one of those, and do you have a preference?
Yeah, I mean, I've played with both, and while there are a variety of parameters that you can use that'll really clean up your Midjourney images, Midjourney to me, it's really not that user friendly. I mean, it's on a Discord server. You have to understand Discord. You have to understand variables. You have to understand a lot of things to get good quality results out of Midjourney. Now, DAL-E was always running behind Midjourney as far as the visuals go. The images weren't very nice, they were poorly rendered, and they weren't really applicable. But that's kind of the case across the board, in my personal opinion. I've never been a huge fan of text to graphics because although they look cool, you can make some really cool looking artwork, but what's the function behind them? How can I use them? Getting something that was functional out of Midjourney was always a struggle. Now, I've mentioned DAL E3 a couple of times this morning. What I've seen, and I haven't been able to play with it myself yet, but what I've seen with DAL E3, it does a tremendous job. It does a tremendous job with text, which has always been a struggle with Midjourney or any of the other text to image generators. It does a really, really good job with hands and feet, which have also always been a big struggle.
Yeah.
So we're continuing to see all of these types of image generation platforms evolve, but I've never been a big fan to date just because they're not that functional.
Now
And
go ahead,
Or
Greg.
didn't they just? I think you can get at DALL-E through Bing now, which
Yeah,
makes
it's
it
I think Bing
a little
slash
bit easier.
image, I think is what it is.
Yeah, something like that. But it's a little bit easier to use.
Yeah, how do you spell Dolly? Because I'm thinking, Dolly if I'm listening to the podcast, and is it Dalle, Dall?
Correct.
Okay, Dalle, awesome. And then where do I? So if I wanted to use that, Craig, you said it was what? Image dot.
Yeah, I think it's if you go to Bing, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Larry,
actually looking for it right now.
is it just in Chat GPT and you click a image
No, it's
button?
definitely not.
No,
It's
Okay,
definitely not.
so it's a different company.
yeah, no,
Well,
it's all the same company.
Okay.
okay, here's how you get to it. Go to bing.com/create, not image.
There
Ah,
you go. You were so close.
bing.com/create.
so
I was
close.
very close.
So-
But it's actually created by the same company that created ChatGPT. It's developed by OpenAI. But we have to keep in mind that we're finding it on the Microsoft site because Microsoft had a minimum of a $10 billion investment into OpenAI. So they're one of their primary partners. And that's why we're seeing this here. And actually, now this is interesting because if you look up in the top left hand corner of that screen, it says powered by DAL E3. So that's interesting. That's relatively new. They weren't announcing the fact that it was definitely DAL E3 the other day. So that's a bit of an update.
Interesting.
And
Bing.
sorry, go ahead,
That's
Dave.
all right. Bing.com/create. All right. And Craig, go ahead.
So it used to be that you had to be pretty good at your prompts to get a decent image. Um, I am not good at those prompts, and I was able to create a really nice image of a robot coming through these ivy covered college gates for a presentation I was doing, and in no time flat. So if you played with it before and you couldn't get it to do what you wanted it to do, try it again.
I think
And
one of my favorite images that I've seen is somebody put in create a picture of Jesus flipping over tables, and instead of him kind of doing one of these with a table and lifting up and flipping it over, it was kind of Jesus as a ninja flipping over tables, and I found that quite humorous. So keep that in mind. We'll have
you
to.
didn't give your Jesus trigger warning, Dave.
I did not. I don't have that lined up. The thing I loved is when Jim and I first talked about AI, I had I don't know if it was in Canva or whatever it was. And the person that we had sitting there, their face was a little weird. And I believe they had 6 fingers, if I remember right. So it's come a long way since then. So obviously the summary here's one. And again, I know the answer is yes, you can. But like right now, I said, bing.com/create. Can I say, scan this transcript and pull out the website addresses? Is that a possibility? Because that would be
Oh,
cool.
Dave, that's an interesting question. I haven't tested that before.
Oh, okay. Well, get right on that, doggone it. No, I'm going to do that. Because that's one of the things I like when I listen to a show, I'm listening for, I need to add those to the show notes and I need to add this and that. So anytime there's a website, because it drives me like, I want to punch my phone when there's somebody. Yesterday I was watching YouTube and apparently the 2 guys, this is a total tangent, I realize, but there's a band called Silverchair that was really huge in Australia. And there were these young kids. Long story short, 2 of the members wrote a book. And it sounds like a really great book. So I'm on YouTube, link in the show note. No link. And I just was like, so anytime somebody mentions anything that is clickable, I try to put it in, the episode description. And it makes me angry when they don't. So that would be cool.
I saw how hard you were trying to get the URL for my podcast there, Dave. So I picked up on your passion.
Yes, that's it. Exactly.
You're like, do you have a site? Do you have a website?
Someplace I can put in the show notes, please. So, Craig, are you teaching this now in school? Like how to be a prompter and engineer?
Kind of. So I'm teaching kind of the junior level information systems class that all business students have to take. And we're doing a mini lab every week to teach them how to use, a lot of them are using Poe because it lets you get into Chat GPT, and others it's Poe.com. You can get into Claude that way. But I'm taking them through a series where we start out trying to write a silly poem, and then eventually we'll work up to much more serious work. So that's not a bad way to start, is to, do something where it's just fun, where you're not really worried that much about exactly solving some problem. And that way you get used to using it and you learn how to use it when you're not worried about some big task.
Yeah.
And then when you want to use it for a big task, you already know how to use it. So,
Larry, I know Craigman mentioned Claude, and I've heard Todd Cochran talk about Claude. Have you played with Claude? And is this one of those where, so this is 2 questions at once, I guess. Have you used Claude? And B, does it make more sense to just double down on one or try to use them all?
I think it's fun to play with them all. Yes, I have played with Claude, and yes, the results have been extremely favorable. But for me personally, my focus has typically landed right back on Chat GPT. I like to kind of have an idea of what everybody else is doing so I can make those comparisons. But with Chat GPT, now you got me, I can't say it.
It's contagious.
But with Chat GPT being at the forefront and everybody being aware of that particular platform more so than some of the others, I tend to focus there. So, because that's typically where all the questions are coming from.
Yeah. Craig, how about you?
So I use Chat GPT a lot more. What Claude is good at is that you can attach really large documents to it. It's got, this is going to get geeky, but I think Chat GPT has what they call a 32K token window. I think it's still 32K.
Yep. It's still 32.
Claude 2 has a 100K token window. And you can kind of divide that or multiply it by 2/3 or so to get the number of words it can handle, but it's not a precise calculation. But you could take a really big document and pop it into Claude and ask it to summarize, and Chat GPT can't handle that. But for lots of other things, the interface is a lot better on Chat GPT. They have a voice
Claude
interface.
is super simple.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Now it's going to talk to me. I'm like,
yeah,
that's a little weird. Is Bing and Bard the same thing? Hey, I can answer this one. No, Bing is a search engine. Bard is Microsoft. No, Bard is Google's Chat GPT. So it's not. And then she says, what are the plugins? This is a good one because I didn't realize it was very much like the it reminded me of WordPress. You get the free thing and then you have to buy all these plugins. And then if you're going to buy plugins, then you have to pay for Chat GPT. So Do you guys have a top 5 list or anything that you use?
I actually do have several that I use regularly, and depending on the audience that I'm talking to, I recommend different plugins. Um, I actually have my top 10 list for entrepreneurs.
Oh, there you go.
Um, let's see here if I can scroll to. I actually opened one of my PowerPoint presentations because I don't have them all memorized.
I was going to say
Um,
that sounds like a phenomenal lead magnet.
it's not bad for sure. So, what are plugins? You have to have the premium or plus account in order to access plugins. And once you have that, if you go to ChatGPT and start a chat, in the top of your window there, you'll see the opportunity for plugins. So you click a drop down, you go to the plugin store, and at last count, which was just last week, there was around 975 different plugins to choose from, and a lot of them doing the same things. But some of the cool things that you have out there is like AI PDF. That's one of my favorite plugins right there for ChatGPT because it helps you overcome that 32K token limitation that Craig was talking about a minute ago. One of my other favorites, and I use this all the time, it's called Video Insights.
Yes.
It's another plugin. So you turn on Video Insights, you give it a YouTube URL, it will watch and summarize a YouTube video for you. So you don't even have to watch them anymore. You can just get all the high points directly from the video. It is amazing. So that's another one of my favorites. Another cool one is called Prompt Perfect. That's a great plugin to help you with your prompting. And this one, and this is kind of interesting because I just said earlier, and I don't know if you picked up on it, I said Bing is back. So ChatGPT now has access to the internet again. However, in my testing and some of the other testing that I've seen on, well, YouTube, it's not really all that reliable. So some of the results are meh. It doesn't really give you a good summary of the sites that it goes to or the articles that you're having it read. So another one of you got to have this plugin. It's called Web Pilot. It gives you direct access to the internet, and it does an amazing job of summarizing some sites for you. So that'll help you cut your research time down significantly if you're looking for points out of a particular article.
Yeah.
And I think that's 4. So
there we go. Craig, you got any favorite plugins that you use?
No, I got pretty frustrated when they first came out because they kind of universally didn't work well, and I have not gotten over that frustration, but I'll try those. By the way, Larry, I would totally sign on to that lead magnet.
Sounds like I better export it real quick.
That's it.
I tell you what I'll do because
it sounds like WordPress though. Hey, when they first came out, the plugins didn't work. I'm like, oh, it's just like WordPress. Well, while you're looking for that, Larry, let me remind everyone watching that. Here, let's see. Can we drag? We'll drag Larry down here into guest 1 while he's looking. That if I can go all the way back. Oh, there we go. Yes. You can be an awesome supporter for Ask the Podcast Coach. Just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. We're on the road to 40. I checked this morning. We're at 33. So if you're thinking, oh, really? I was going to do that last week and then you didn't. Well, yeah, now you should. So you can be an awesome supporter. And this show is also brought to you by the schoolofpodcasting.com, where you can get courses, coaching, and community. And, of course, unlimited one-on-one coaching. Check it out, schoolofpodcasting.com. Ask the Podcast Coach runs on Podpage. You can check it out at trypodpage.com. And there's a lot of really cool stuff happening over at Podpage. In fact, I was talking with Brendan over the weekend, and I'm like, you're going to make me very busy in updating tutorials again. Check it out, trypodpage.com. Jim's not here, and if you just miss him, well, then go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out one Jim Cullison and his show Home Gadget Geeks. And the Spotlight Supporter of the Week is the one and only Glenn Hebert, better known as Glenn the Geek. You can find him at horseradionetwork.com. Glenn has been a long-time supporter. In fact, he's probably the longest supporter. So thank you so much for that, Glenn. I deeply appreciate it. And again, if you want to be an awesome supporter, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And since they're here today, of course, you can check out Craig's show at Live Well and Flourish. It's here's why I like that show. It makes me think. And I always say, if you make me laugh, cry, think, groan, educate, or entertain. And that show is a great, it's typically short. You walk around the block, you get a nice little thing, and you go, huh, you know what? I should do that. And of course, you can find Larry over at Red Hat Media. Oh, there's a nice picture of that. That's not what we want. We want that. Redhatmedia.io. Or what was the other website that I've already forgotten? Branding, listentobranding.com.
Listen to branded.com. There's a link on redhatmedia.io as well, directly to the podcast. You can find it there. And Dave, I wanted to let you know, I'm going to put in the chat a link to one of my presentations that has all of the prompts that I put in the chat. It has all of my favorite plugins. And again, these are directed at an entrepreneur audience, but still, it's just redhatmedia.io/EOSD. So I'm going to put that right there. And that stands for Entrepreneur Organization San Diego. It was a chat that I did,
Nice.
I don't know, about a month ago. So you can get all those slides. It has all my favorite stuff with ChatGPT in there.
What's for both of you guys, what's the thing you've done with ChatGPT that you went, whoa, I didn't think that was gonna, I should have asked you guys this before, but like, is there one thing you went, oh man, that is cool?
Yeah, I wrote my book. Yeah, I literally wrote an entire book. I mean, you may have seen the posts on social media that my book's coming out. The whole thing was written with ChatGPT. I wrote it in about 6 hours. And it's 12 chapters. It's called Under the Red Hat, How to Stand Out in a Crowded Marketplace. And it was 100% written by ChatGPT. Then after that, I went back in and added some anecdotes and some personal stories, and it kind of brought it up to speed. But within one day, I had an entire book written.
Now, where did it get the content? Like, did you just talk into a microphone and have it transcribed, or?
No. I did the persona modeling, which you'll find in those slides. And again, this is not the squirrel one. This is a totally different book. Yes, I saw Hillary mention that there. I gave it my persona using the custom instructions that we talked about earlier. And then I prompted it with a premise of how to stand out in a crowd. And in my particular instance, it happens to be a red hat, but how can I help you?
And then he locked up.
Cliffhanger.
There you go. All right. Well, Craig, what was the thing that you did that you're like, wait, what? That's cool.
I feel like such an underachiever after that. I thought it was really cool that it could write a poem about my cat Taz. So I should just slink away now.
No, but poems are very creative. I never would have thought it would have, somehow. Yeah, Larry is gone. He'll be back. So I'm just going to keep this screen open.
You can have it write a poem in a pirate voice or whatever you want.
There you go. And he's back. And it's not letting me drag him. Come on. There we go. And he's back. Beautiful.
Man, I love right in the middle of my book pitch. It's like, no, you're out, bro. No pitching from the stage.
So no, go right ahead. So where can we find your book?
It's not out yet, but you can go to redhatmedia.io/book to sign up for the, you'll be one of the first ones to know about it once it does drop. And it should be out within the next 2 weeks.
And the name of the book is?
Under the Red Hat, How to Stand Out in a Crowded Marketplace.
There you go. Do you want to tell that story? Because here's the beautiful thing about it. It works so well. And anytime I'm at an event or whatever, even if he has his back to me, if I see somebody with a red hat, I go, oh, cool, Larry's here. Plus, what are you, 6'2", 6'3"? You're a tall dude.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Used to be 6'3", but over the years, I've probably, shrunk a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it started out, I was in Tampa, Florida at Podfest Origins, which was a small version of Podfest that happened about 2 years ago. And I was giving a talk. And while I was on stage, I was wearing a red hat, but it was a branded hat. Brand was called Supreme. And it's just a red hat with the word Supreme on it. And I was doing that because I was trying to relate to maybe some of the younger folks in the audience, because that Supreme brand is a lifestyle brand that a lot of them were wearing a couple of years ago. So I gave my talk and I came down off stage, and Alex Sanfilippo, who owns Podmatch, he's the owner and founder of Podmatch. I'm sure everybody here probably knows who he is. He and I tend to give each other a hard time every time we talk. So we went through our little rhetoric back and forth, and he goes, but I got to ask you a serious question. He goes, why are you wearing that Supreme hat? And I told him, he goes, well, are they paying you? Are they sponsoring you? I'm like, dude, I'm a middle-aged white dude. There's no way they're ever going to sponsor me. He goes, well, then why are you wearing their merch on stage? He goes, but I love the red hat because, Dave, as you alluded to, I'm pretty tall. I weigh about 240 and I'm pretty loud. So I already stand out, but this red hat is like a beacon in the night. People can see it from all the way down the hallway and they know it's me. So that kind of resonated with me. If I'm not getting paid, why wear their stuff? So I went home, jumped on Amazon, bought a $6 unbranded red flat bill hat, threw it on, tilted it about 15 degrees to the right, and the red hat guy was born. And literally from that point forward, people started recognizing me as, quote unquote, the red hat guy. And they go, oh, you're that red hat guy that does the podcasting stuff. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. But it really drove home when about 5 months later, I was at a conference in Miami called Bitcoin Miami, 35,000 people in attendance over the span of 3 to 4 days.
Wow.
And during that time, multiple people who I did not know found me in that sea of tens of thousands of people and said, oh, you're that red hat podcast guy. So when that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is real. This is the real deal. So went back home, changed the business name, and it's been the Red Hat ever since.
Nice.
Awesome. It works, man. It really does. DR wanted to know it's redhatmedia.io/ESOD.
EOSD.
EOSD. Got it.
I'll put it back in the chat again real quick.
Yeah.
And there's no email sign up or anything. It's literally just click the button, download the presentation. My calendar is on that page, but there's no email wall or anything like that. Just grab the slides and hopefully they help you out.
Yeah. So in addition to ChatGPT, you are a podcast guy. So if you need help with your podcast and you're like, I don't like that Dave guy, well, then go over and check out Larry. He's a good guy and get you going over there and check out Branded and that whole 9 yards. What's so kind of, is there anything else we should talk about in terms of ChatGPT that you're like, oh, we haven't talked about this yet, but if somebody's new to it,
yeah,
like where do they start?
I would start with the free account. I mean, you have a ton of functionality that's available to you on the free account. So head over to chat.openai.com, sign up for a free account, and play with it a little bit. Now, you have to keep in mind when you're using that free account, you're using an entirely different model of ChatGPT. So it's not going to give you quite the same level of creativity or collaborative type responses that you would get if you sign up for GPT-4, which is the paid version. So, but it's a great place to start. And you can start playing with some add-ins and some plugins like AI PRM, those types of things. That's actually a Chrome extension. So if you're a Chrome user, that will help you out there. But just start playing with it. You know, one of the biggest things that people need to be aware of, and I used this example the other day, if we think back to 1995, and I know everybody at least on the screen right now remembers 1995, there was an article in Newsweek that said that the internet was essentially a fad and that by 96 the internet would implode and it would all go away. And well, here we are today. You know, we're still using it in all aspects of our lives. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people are resistant to AI, and some of them even have the opinion that it's a fad. You know, we just went through the whole NFT thing, which imploded gloriously. But AI is nothing like that. You know, AI passes what I call the mom test. If I can explain how to use these tools to my mom and she gets it, that in itself is a sign that this was probably here to stay. But that's still a huge concern. It's not going anywhere. It's here and it's been here. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand too, because the term AI was actually coined in 1956. So it's not something that's new, but back then they were just trying to use mathematical calculations or algorithms to get machines to mimic human-like behavior. And in their efforts, they called it AI, or artificial intelligence. So it's been around forever. It's just consistently evolving, and we're going to continue to see it evolve and become more and more ingrained in every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
And you've been
Thank you
using
for coming to
AI.
my TED Talk.
Yeah.
Been using AI for years. You just didn't know it. Every time you got a recommendation on Amazon or did a Google search, you were using AI.
Yeah.
The one word of warning, though, and this is me speaking to me as much as anything else, is avoid the rabbit hole. So, you know, it's easy to get in and just keep going and keep going and keep going and forget about what you're really trying to accomplish, because it's fascinating and it'll never get tired.
Yeah. Well, there was a thing where Warner Brothers just signed a fake artist, like it's computer generated. And in the press release, it was like, this person will not be a diva on tour, never get tired, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of like the YouTube video I was watching was from this independent artist, and she's like, so I wonder how like the Warner Brother label mates, the other bands that are like, hey, thanks for like, complaining that, I don't want to tour 24/7 and that whole nine yards. But it'll be interesting to see because, it's really easy to make videos and, just you can have her dive into a shark or whatever you want because, she's not going to die because I forget her name. It was something like Nanu or something. It was very bizarre, but that was
She
it.
won't get any older and she'll never die. See if you remember that
Yeah.
movie. But no, you're spot on. And that was really at the part of the forefront of the WGA strike that recently was resolved. I mean, the writers were on strike because of the fact that Hollywood is starting to use AI in a lot of their productions. So they were trying to protect themselves. And when we start talking about protection, that's always a big concern too. These companies that I go into and I start doing some consulting for AI and how they could implement certain AI tools in their systems, I hear from their programming staff, I hear from their customer service staff, I hear from the people there, they go, oh, AI, it's garbage, it's never going to work. And most of them are saying that out of a sense of self-preservation because they see AI coming in and potentially eliminating quite a few of these positions.
Yeah, that is spooky. I know another form, right? I've got one sitting right in front of me. The woman in the tube from Amazon. That's AI. That is really annoying. The last 2 days, I'm really been considering like just I've had enough of this because although I did find out I can have her make sticky notes because I have one with a screen, and I can ask her to make a sticky note and go that whole nine yards. So that's interesting. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch. And the funny thing is, I'm sure if you go to Amazon and search for a book on ChatGPT, there's got to be 150, all of them written by ChatGPT. So that'll be great fun. So any final words on ChatGPT before I got one other topic we're going to throw out?
Man, I think we've covered a lot of it. Craig, do you have anything?
No, I just want to say thanks for letting me hone in. I've got to go feed the horses.
Ah, excellent. Well,
All right.
can you answer one more question?
Sure.
What was the last thing you read, listened to, or watched?
Read, listened to, or watched.
Yeah,
I was listening to David Hooper's podcast on the way
there you go.
driving home. So
There you go. Larry?
Shout out to David.
Yeah.
Last thing I watched was I think I started episode 1, season 2 of Loki yesterday, but didn't get to finish it. So that was the last thing that I just sat down to watch.
There you go. Was it good so far?
It's off to an interesting start. Yeah.
There you go. Excellent. I'm just throwing that out and I'm like, what are you watching? So excellent.
And for the record, I had already listened to your episode for this week before I listened to David. So just so everybody knows. Thanks again.
All right. We'll see you.
See you, Craig.
We'll go back to, except now I got to drag Larry, dragging Larry. Okay. Hold on, Larry. You're coming. There we go. There he is.
Oh, look, there I am. Cool.
I was like, yeah, we did have a question here from the Z-Man. No, it was from Zeke. He said, hey, Dave, although I can't, the comment thing is a little, I need to make room for those. The eCam setup is looking pretty fancy. How is it behind the scenes? There's a learning curve. There's no lie. There's a learning curve because just doing things like I want to make these smaller, but then can people read them? I don't know, but at least now it's fitting in there. It's fun. What I want to do is behind the scenes, I have one screen that has like kind of what you're looking at. And then I have a whole bunch of itty bitty windows all around it. And I want to make the big screen smaller because I don't really need to see much besides where do I grab these comments at. So it's fun. I like it. It was, I was like, oh wait, I got to set this up for Larry instead of Jim. That took all of, 2 seconds. So it was no big deal. I'm kind of worried that it's and this apparently is everything. I was on 2 Riverside calls this week and both of them quit recording my stuff halfway through the interview. Now, part of me goes, what's the common denominator in that? That would be Dave. So maybe there's a problem, but I mean, I'm on fiber I got bandwidth out the wazoo here. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the common denominator there may have been Riverside.
Yeah.
I hear about that a lot. And I used to use Riverside. Yeah. And then they quit sponsoring me, so I quit using them. But that wasn't really why. No, there's just so many technical issues that they've been having. And I think they've been growing at such a quick rate that their servers are just having a hard time keeping up with the new workload.
Yeah. Here's another Chat GPT question from the Z-Man. I'm in music sync. Can I input an MP3 and have Chat GPT suggest the appropriate music library for that particular style of music? Does it? I know it reads text. Does it listen to music? Not yet.
It does not. Does not yet. No. You know, it might be interesting once it gets rolled out to test it with the new features that it has, where you can have the conversations. It might be fun to play with that. I don't have it on my account yet, so I haven't been able to test something like that. But as soon as I have the hear, see, and speak functionality rolled out to my particular account, I'll give that a shot. But for right now, no, it's not something that it can do.
And then DR mentioned that I didn't say what I was watching too. Here's the funny thing. I watched this because I thought I was going to hate it. It's called Totally Killer on Amazon Prime. And what they did is they took Scream and Back to the Future and put them together. The funniest thing about it is you have people that are easily 22, maybe 24, playing teenagers, which is funny. But it's basically Scream, and these people get killed. So this one girl somehow invented a time machine and it wasn't working, and then it did. And she goes back in time and she's trying to catch the killer in 1987. So there's lots of neon and glowing and bad 80s music, and the fact that she's like, this one guy walks up and he's got an FBI shirt on and it's like female body inspector, and she's like totally not appropriate. So it's a lot of bad 80s jokes and things like that. So I really didn't think I was going to like it. And the element of a good story is I wonder what's going to happen next. And there's a lot of that in that, because there are some wrenches thrown in that you're like, oh, I know how this is going to end. It's that guy's the killer. And then all of a sudden you go, So Michael has a question about the new pod mic compared to the SM7B. I am not an audio snob. I am not at all. I can pop this one a little more than the SM7B. For me, and people go, blasphemy. One of the things about the SM7B is its warm tone. To me, warm equals muffled. And so I like my S's and T's a little clearer. So I actually like this a little better than the SM7B, but I'm probably going to put it on just for the status symbol to go, look at me. I spent too much money on a microphone. I did see a thing on the SM7DB, which Sherwin, where they basically put a preamp in it from Bandrew over at Podcastage. That's a great channel on YouTube. And he basically said, if you're wondering, is it just an SM7B with a preamp? Yeah. So you could get an SM7B for $400 and get a FET head for $80 and save, I don't know, $20. And it doesn't have the Shure thing on the side and things like that. But that's what they did. They put a preamp into the SM7B. So that's new in the gear world. Larry, you have what there? Is that a MV7 or an S? Did you also pay too much for a micro?
I also paid way too much, and I don't even know if I'm using it on this broadcast right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I am?
Somehow
okay, cool.
You came back and I was like, wow, he doesn't sound like he's on the phone. So it'll be fun.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So maybe but no, I'm on a 7B right now.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. So, and keep in mind, you don't have to have an SM7B. It is fun. It is very much the high LPR 40 of, the 2020s, because everybody bought one because Leo Laporte had one. And then Joe Rogan came on the scene and everybody's like, oh, well, if I get Joe's microphone, by all means, somebody will give me $200,000.
I will be super successful.
Yeah. And so far that's not working.
Negative. Yeah. I bought my PR40 because of Cliff Ravenscraft. Cliff was, when I started podcasting back in 2014, I think his videos were probably some of the first ones that I stumbled across. And he had his whole podcast Answer Man package. And I was in it to win it with Mr. Ravenscraft there.
Yeah. And then Tim is saying, see, this is the mic I don't have that I was actually thinking about this morning, the RE320. No, I was thinking about an RE20. I actually love my RE320. That's my favorite mic. Why I'm not using it, who knows? But people said I sounded a little harsh. He sounds a little harsh because, again, I like my S's and T's, which I thought about it later. That may just be old rock guy, that maybe that part of my ears don't function as well. And so I boost the the S's and T's, the treble, because my treble is not as, receptive as it used to be. The Q9U is an interesting mic as well. I've heard that. I'm just not, I'm not a microphone guy. Because to me, I'm like, I can make any microphone sound like any microphone in post. So what it really boils down to is, do you like the sound of your voice when you're doing it? And if you don't, I get that, because I know when I go down and play at Podfest and they go, here, play this guitar, and it's like, clink, and I'm like, oh, that is not the sound I'm used to playing through. And it affects how I play. So, Larry, do you have a favorite for travel? Best
For
travel
travel, man, I just take like an Audio Technica. I really, a Samsung Q2U or an Audio Technica 2100X. Those are typically my travel mics because A, they're inexpensive, and B, they sound fine for that type of environment.
Yeah. Now, if you're really going to beat the snot out of it, then get a Shure SM58, because those are the ones I used in bands and just saw them get. My favorite is you'd be singing backup. Somebody would come by, hit the mic stand, and that thing just whack right into the ground. Just get a big old dent on the whatever that thing is on the front of the mic, the windscreen, and you pick it up and you're like, it's still working great. Okay. So there are videos of people that have like run over an SM58 with their car and it still works. So they're very, very durable. And then you just buy a new windscreen and it looks like new. But the total rock look is even more than the band standing in front of a brick wall, because that's just standard. Is somebody singing into a SM58 with a dent. That's like just like there you go. It's very almost. Like
But now that has the same form factor, though, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a great mic. I have one probably dented I have my old. What's great about it? I have this old toolkit with cables and stuff from when I played in a band. And if I open the lid and go, it's like bar. Just like Mom used to. It just smells like smoke and beer, and it's like ugh. So that's always fun. Let's see here. Hillary has another question. Keep them coming, kids. Thanks. The SM58. Can you add the other two in the comments? I missed that. Oh, it's the.
I just locked up again.
No, you're not. You're still here. Honest. So Samson Q2U. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com and click on under, I think, about, there's a My Gear section. That's one. Or if you just go to sportthishow.com/Q2U. And he was out, and then but you know what? I almost don't want to bring it back. Can you look so awesome that was cool. You had this cool look on your face, like James Bond. It was very cool. So, yeah, but the other one is the Audio Technica ATR 2100X. And now the advantage of the 2100X, which I have one right here, is it's USB-C, where the Q2U is USB old, whatever the one was. And now with phones now going to USB-C on the iPhone side, in theory, I'll be able to take a USB-C to USB-C cable and just plug it right into my phone. So if I'm on the road, all I need is a cable and hit record on my phone, and you're good to go. That has been tested. Rob Walsh from Libsyn tested that on an iPad, and it worked. It didn't work on, like, if you bought one of those connectors, it was like USB-C to Lightning somehow, until the Apple, I'm sure, version comes out that's $30 for a 4-inch cable. That's not working right now. But if you go USB-C to USB-C, you're good to go. So excellent. Larry, you out on the road again, or what's coming up in the land of Larry?
Actually, yes. I leave Tuesday morning to go to speak at the eWomen's Network Speakonomics Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And then from there, I head to Tampa to speak at Entrepreneur Organization's Nerve event. It's their big East Coast yearly event that they have there. So those are my next 2 weeks. That's what they're looking like.
Fun. And then if people want to hear your podcast again, that website is?
ListenToBranded.com.
And then the redhatmedia.io is where you can find Larry if you need help with your show or need help with ChatGPT or whatever it is. Find Larry over there. Thanks, buddy, for you've been through quite a day already. So,
yeah, I'm going back to bed. This has been a rough one.
So I don't know if you ever figure out if it was me or you or what was going on today, but I'm glad you took the time because it was funny. We were at this event and I'm like, Larry, I want to have you on a show, but I need you for about 4 hours because there's so much we could talk about with ChatGPT. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got 90 minutes this Saturday because Jim isn't in. So on short notice, you're like, yeah, man, I'll do it. So thanks so much for that. Again, we're here every Saturday. Jim will be back next Saturday. AskThePodcastCoach.com/live. And I got nothing on my calendar besides Pod Indy, and that's in November. So that's a new event from Dr. Brad Miller from Cancer and Comedy.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be awesome. I forgot about that one. I need to probably make an appearance there. I love Dr. Brad.
Yeah, so. It's new. This is the first year for it, and he said, "Hey, can you come over and do a workshop?" And I'm like, twist my arm, I guess. If I have to talk about podcasting, I will do that. But thanks again to the chat room. Thanks to Mark over at podcastbranding.co and Dan at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. And of course, if you need help with your podcast, check me out at schoolofpodcasting.com. And this is where I learned, Larry, that I am awful at talking up a record because I got another quarter of a pie that the music's going to play, and I'm just not in the mood to dance. But I will say thank you again, and I'm going to go buy a green hat now just to be in competition. I'll be the green hat guy.
There you go.
It will be like Christmas. Awesome. So
I love it.
Like and subscribe and ring the bell if you're on YouTube. And we'll see you next week with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.
Thanks, everybody.